Doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that our unemployment rate is high. Men aren't working, women aren't working. But the problem is when men don't work, it creates a bigger problem. Join us today because we want to put men back to work because they're driving us crazy.
It's for me, it's for you. Empower your life today with the word of God. It's for me, it's for you. Embrace your destiny. Empower your life.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sherry Gaither, hosting Empowering Your Life. You know, our economy is challenged, and when it is challenged, it challenges us. So we have men unemployed, we have women unemployed. The challenge is that when men are unemployed, many times they don't know how to handle the transition from employment to unemployment to back to being employed. Today, I have an expert with me. You know why? Because he's been there. And he is writing a book and has written a book called Men Down But Not Out, going from employment to unemployment, transitioning back to employment. And you know what? This is going to bless you and bless those around you who have been in this situation. It's good when you have somebody who's not just writing about something they heard, but it's even better when you have somebody who's writing about something they have experienced. And so today, Juvernia Smith, we just thank you so much for being with us. And I want to, first of all, ask you, when you were employed, were you one of those individuals who didn't think it would ever end?
Yes. Well, first I want to say thank you for inviting me. But yes, the answer is yes. I was one of those people who felt I had everything that I needed to stay employed. I was to work on time. I was usually one of the last people to leave, if not the last person to leave. So I did what I thought was necessary to stay employed.
And was it a shocker? Was it rumored? Was it something that you said, hey, I am the hardest working person here, so they would be a fool to let me go? Is that what you thought, or what happened? Tell us a little bit, because there is somebody out there who's in your situation, and I believe that you are the man to speak encouraging words to a man, a wife who is praying for her husband, or to a family. So tell us, give us your story.
Well, I was employed with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I was an assistant branch manager, which meant I pretty much ran the location. I had been with the company for 5 years, actually going into my 6th year, and I felt very comfortable. It was a demanding job, 7 in the morning to sometimes 7, 8 o'clock at night, but I enjoyed what I did because I dealt with people, and I enjoy people. Having completed my master's degree while working there, I figured, wow, they know I have this degree, they know I'm on the track for, higher things, and I shouldn't have a problem. But unfortunately, sometimes things occur that are out of your control.
Right.
And the economy is one of them. And even though Enterprise is a very large company, very powerful company that has a lot of revenue, they had to make cutbacks too. And I got caught up in some of those cutbacks. Unfortunately, my location's numbers weren't where they needed to be. And as manager, we're the first ones that are looked at. So since I couldn't get the numbers turned around, I had to step down.
Now let me ask you this, because having said all that, you were so hardworking, you love what you did. If you could be transparent, because it's going to bless somebody, how did you initially handle going home and telling your wife, baby, I don't have a job, or whatever you said?
Well, let me be completely transparent. I sounded as though I loved what I did. I loved working with people, but there were things in my job that, of course, I didn't like. And I'm sure a lot of people on their job, there's things that they don't like. But the hours were very challenging. I have 2 small children, a 6 and a 3-year-old, and I wasn't spending a lot of time with them. And because of the demanding schedule that I worked, which was 5 days a week, 6 days a week, I'm sorry, many hours, my health wasn't as good as it should have been. And so when I actually initially came home and told my wife that I had been let go, she was actually kind of pleased. She was like, oh, good. Now you'll be home. Now you'll be here with the kids, and we can pursue some things that we've been wanting to do. And I felt okay, I have, some background. I've done a lot of different things. There shouldn't be a problem with me transitioning into another position. It just never dawned on me that I would be out of work more than 10 months.
Okay.
It never dawned on me that I would go through my 401k and not have anything left.
Okay.
Never dawned on me that I might end up having to babysit my 3-year-old because we couldn't afford childcare. So to say initially I was okay with not having the job, it only took about 2 weeks for me to realize that I needed to get right back to work.
No, stop there for a moment. And I do thank you for your transparency, because you're going to bless and you're going to encourage someone else. But when you're used to working, it's a mind thing to go. And I think most people love to call in sick for a day, but the thought of not having an income stream coming in and not prepared to be laid off is another thing. It's a rude awakening.
Yes.
So it took, for a moment you were like, yeah, and she was like, yeah. But when you have 2 children and you're used to 2 incomes, to go down to 1, it didn't take but a moment. Now, having said all that, and it is true, there was a time, especially with a master's degree, here you are having both degrees and thinking, I am worth something. I mean,
Exactly.
Society says that I am worth something. And so, you're thinking, all I have to do is just put my resume out there, network a little bit, and within a short time, I should have something else coming in. And that used to be the case.
Right.
So help somebody out there who is right now where you were, and because doors have opened for you in a different way. We'll talk about that in a moment. But help somebody out there. What did you initially, did you get depressed? Did you go through a mental breakdown, meltdown? What happened?
Well, actually, I was quite angry. I mean, to the point where I was wanting to pursue an attorney to try to, fight the powers that be to try to get my job back, if that, or some kind of compensation. And then after about a week of realizing that was futile, I said, okay, this is more like a vacation. Let me just kind of kick back, excuse me, and just kind of think about what my next move is going to be. So I did what a lot of men do these days, and play a little PlayStation and watch a little TV. So the first week or two, it was like a vacation. But then when that last check came and the realization came that there was no more coming, it got a little scary. And so now, you hit the computer, you hit the streets, and you start, really networking and searching for work. And of course, your mindset is, well, I was at this level, so I really can't look for anything below that level. So I have to keep looking for something where I at least maintain the same pay where I was for the first 4 or 5 months. That's what you do.
Now stop there for a moment, because that seems to be a challenge. And I have preached this, and so many other people, is that so much of our self-worth is tied into our titles, our positions, and our salaries. So that the thought that I could be at a master's level and I have to come down to making money that I might have made years ago when I first came out of college, or making something that is so far beneath me, that's very hard for most people, male or female, to handle. And so I've had to help people to understand to keep the lights on, keep the cell phone on, to keep gas in the car, to make sure that we, whatever, get a day job, night job, weekend job. This is a comma, not a period. And by that, I mean, this is temporary. So if you have to take something that it's not what you're used to making right now, is survival. Is that what you had to do?
Well, I would have liked to have done that, but it took a while for me to even get to that point.
Oh, okay.
During this period, I went from, okay, I can't find a management position, so let me find maybe a management trainee position. I've already been through it before, so shouldn't be a problem.
Were you overqualified?
In some cases, yes. And typically, I think what happens is when you have so much experience, so much education, a lot of companies will look at you and say, okay, this person won't accept this without even talking to you. And so they'll just bypass your resume, move on to the next one. And I do feel that happened to me a lot, because some of these companies that I did apply to, I mean, it was very obvious that they were looking for help, but they just weren't willing to pay what I would have actually requested or required. And you get to that point where, okay, we have to start making concessions. You know, I said I was playing PlayStation. Well, that had to go. Cable, had to cut that out. We had to transition and change our mindset of our spending habits because there was no additional income.
Right.
And I think that was really one of the hardest things to do. But once we got that fixed, okay, depression is starting to creep up because here now I'm at a 6-month point and I don't have a job.
And had you had very many interviews by that point?
I hadn't had any interviews at
No
that point.
interviews.
Not a single one.
Oh my gosh. And oh gosh.
Not even a telephone interview.
And in Georgia, the unemployment rate is 10.5. And one of the things that they say happens is that depression, the longer you're unemployed, like you said, and you're not getting, you're sending out resumes. And I don't know what's worse. Years ago, they used to send you rejection letters.
Right.
And a pile of those would make me depressed. But now you don't get any type of response whatsoever. So that makes you depressed. And I don't know which one is worse. I don't know which one is worse. But there are a lot of depressed people. And what I have found as a pastor is that the three main things that challenge a marriage are sex, communication, and finances. And when we start arguing over finances, communication shuts down. And there is no sex. There is no, there's just not, the intimacy is gone because we're arguing over things that really we have no control over, but everything is tense. And so we're going to talk about your book in a moment because I believe it's going to bless men and women and families because it's real. Yes. And you talk about real issues, and I want you to give us some of the things that are going to be in the book. And when the book comes out, we'll have you back, and you should do book signings because I tell you this, there are more people who need to know how to make that transition from employment to unemployment. Now, when you don't have anybody calling you, how do you encourage yourself?
That was tough. I think the one of the hardest parts about being unemployed today is you no longer are able to go into a company and have them see you. A lot of times if they see you and talk to you, you may be able to bypass that first level and get to someone to actually give you a chance.